Welcome everyone to the second ever BC Craft Beer Conference. We have a very packed room, which we're happy about. We had so much fun last year, we decided to do it again this year. As like the industry we represent, we grow at an unprecedented rate year over year. And this conference also has grown, and we're very excited to offer you a bigger and a much better conference for 2018. I'm Ken Beattie, I'm the Executive Director of the Craft Brewers Guild, and I'm so excited to get going that I'm going to keep my comments short. If you also know me, you know I've never met a microphone I didn't like, so I'm going to try learn something new. My mantra for you today is pretty simple. You need to divide and you need to conquer. We've stepped up our game here today on the seminar side and the trade show front. We have if you have more than 2 members on your team here, and you go to the same thing, you're wasting your money. We've got lots of concurrent sessions happening in 2 rooms, and you should be able to split, divide, and conquer, and then get together in the trade show booth, one of the 2 trade show areas where beer will be there, and then explain to each other what you learned today. So keep that in mind, divide and conquer. At the front of room A, there's 5 platinum sponsors, and I'd like to recognize them for because they've gone over and above every year. Even when we started with when we started 5 years ago, we had 15 members. We now have over 140. So thank you all for joining the Guild. But those 5 members, those 5 companies have, when we either started or we announced this conference, they stepped up majorly. So I'd like to just acknowledge the efforts of RBS Law, who have been our legal counsel since we started, the Great Little Box Company, BC Hop Co., Capri CMW Insurance, who is our insurance supplier, and West Coast Canning, and also Direct Tap. We have over 40 suppliers who have come to support you, so please support them by going around to each booth, actively engaging with those staff, and thanking them for being at your conference. A conference is only as successful as the people who support it, and we thank you all for choosing to join us today. We've exceeded our own expectations in terms of participants and in terms of suppliers. Before I bring on our host for today, I'd like to acknowledge the efforts of some of our suppliers who have really, again, gone over and above. Last night we had our AGM. West Coast Canning once again stepped up and sponsored our entire AGM. We really appreciate that. There's nothing like, who doesn't love to go to a great AGM? You get to pass motions and vote. I mean, it's scintillating stuff. But when West Coast Canning involves 12 Kings karaoke, well, it becomes a bit better of a AGM for sure. Direct Tap, I should say. Once again, they're sponsoring our after party tonight, epic after party, we like to call it. It's Beard Science. It's at Science World. It starts at 7 tonight. So we hope they've virtually sold that out also, so we're looking forward to that. I'd also like to thank and introduce to you, if you haven't seen it, our triple dry hopped lager, which is our collaborative beer for, and because the liquor board's here, I'm not allowed to drink that yet because we always are in compliance. Sairose, don't drink that, Sairose. So that was created by Todd Fowler from Phillips Brewery and Carrie Dyson of Brew Hall. And we're super happy to announce part of all the proceeds of the sales of that are going to our new charity, BC Hospitality Foundation. If you're unfamiliar with it, it provides financial support for hospitality workers facing financial crisis due to medical illness. It's in over 50 liquor stores. It's in private stores. It's on sale at a brew hall also. We'd also like to thank Cisco Foods, who stepped up this year, provided us breakfast. How good was breakfast? Nice to get some food in you. They're going to do lunch. They'll be doing coffee for us, and we really appreciate them helping. We're videotaping all these sessions, so be on your best behavior. So we can upload them onto our site after the conference. I want to thank Upper Story Films and for their videography. And we'd also like to thank ContainerWorld, who is sponsoring the videotaping. Okay, I promise these remarks will be short, and they're probably already gone so long. And I don't want to be the guy throwing us off time. But it's my great pleasure. If you haven't met Carlos Mendes, he is our legal counsel from RBS Law. And I would highly suggest having a beer with him for 2 reasons. The first reason, and he's been our legal advisor for the Guild and the board for over 5 years. His generosity and his guidance have been invaluable to us over these years. He leads the craft brewery practice group, the esteemed RBS law firm, and he offers the entire playbook of your legal needs, such highlights as permits and licensing, compliance, incorporation, startup financing, commercial leasing, expansion, buying and selling your businesses. So the next time you need a legal opinion, call him first. Let's start there, because he supported us. Secondly, he's in the know, man. He's a beer writer, a blogger. He's got his own Twitter account at BC Law, or his blog at bclaw.com. He also writes bi-weekly articles for Scout Magazine, and you can count on Carlos to know what's going on in the beer world and have an educated and articulate conversation with him. It's my pleasure to turn over to Carlos. He'll be our MC for the day. Enjoy. There's lots to learn. Remember, divide and conquer. And if you overindulge in whatever legal substance that might be available to you today, please plan a safe ride home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ken. I'm going to talk right into the mic because apparently I talk a lot like this when I'm at conferences. So I'm going to talk with that. So first point of clarification, it's bcbeerlaw.com, not BC Law. That's okay. So as Ken mentioned, I am a beer industry lawyer. I am the head of the Craft Beer Practice Group at Richards Buell Sutton LLP in Vancouver, which is the only group of its kind in Canada. We offer full service to folks in the beer industry, everything from licensing and trademark to leasing, corporate structuring, financing, employment, the whole gamut. I also write for Scout Magazine. I'm their featured beer writer. I do bi-weekly articles, or at least I try to. Beer reviews, and also focusing on the folks in the industry, which is what I find the most interesting, telling their backstories, what inspired them, what the context of their brewery and their story really is, which if you read Scout, that's kind of their MO. And then of course I'm working with the Guild. So getting an insider perspective on the regulatory landscape in BC, where it's going, working with Ken and the board and these folks here, people in Victoria at the AG's office, LCRB, and here in town with the LDB. And so as great as reviewing contracts and advising people on regulatory steps really is, the best part of my job really is the people I get to work with, people getting to know them and hearing their stories. And I think we'd all agree that the amazing people in this industry and their commitment to putting everything in on the line to make the beverage that they love is one of the key things that attracted most of the people in the room to join the business in the first place. It reminds me of the theme of Vancouver Craft Beer Week in 2013. Going all in. You may remember that badass picture of Nigel and Conrad from Brassneck, Don from Bomber, Josh from 33 Acres, and Cam and Nigel from Main Street, all playing poker. It's a theme I'll be returning to. So what has changed in the last year since I stood up here? Well, starting on a high note, there was the Canadian Beer Awards, where BC Breweries won a total of 51 medals across 55 style categories, including 18 golds, and of course, Ben, Mitch, and the crew over at Daggerad were rightfully recognized as Brewery of the Year. Yeah, give it up. Pretty awesome stuff. Driven by cultural, generational, and demographic shifts, we've seen even more breweries opening up across BC, with well over 170 now, depending on who you ask, which is again pretty amazing. We've seen the power of the industry's collective voice, with increased participation in the regulatory decisions that impact our industry, including the Hicken panel. But we've also seen some contractions and some pretty well-known breweries changing hands. Now, as someone who knows the backstories on these changes, I wouldn't read too much into them, as everyone involved complex and often personal factors. But the industry has definitely grown to where some of the old playbooks are no longer working. And there are far more unknowns out there than there were when I stood here a year ago. So where does that leave us? Well, as someone who sees the industry from multiple vantage points, I have to say that I remain incredibly optimistic about where it's going and in the industry's ability to maintain its incredible recent success. My reasons bring me back to that theme at BCBW in 2013, going all in. It's one of the common stories I see with my clients, risking everything to follow a dream. They come to me because they find themselves at a stage in their life or maybe their job isn't the most satisfying. They want to do something they're passionate about, so they're willing to risk everything. They have difficult discussions around the dinner table with their significant other. They're going to mortgage their home, they're going to borrow everything for their friends, and go all in. And it's that dream that we need to be remembering. Because the reasons that got you into this industry in the first place, and those founding principles that led you to go all in, will help you weather changes in the market and the many storms you face along the way. So what are those founding principles? Well, first and foremost, it's about making really, really good beer and never compromising on quality. It's about remaining true to your vision and not letting some bad reviews or a few bad weeks of sales make you question it. It's about staying nimble, not overstretching yourself and growing for the sake of growing. It's about community, collegiality, sharing mentorship, best practices, ingredients, and even staff with your competitors. It's about coming together to make our neighborhoods, our province, and the world a better place, one pint at a time. I always tell my clients to utilize the amazing camaraderie and collegiality in this business when they're starting out, to draw on the well of mentorship and support as soon as they can, and to pay it forward to someone else. Remember when you went to beer events without your staff and coworkers and asked brewers questions and just geeked out about beer? It's about that excitement, and it's also about the experience of making those connections. And that is what today is all about. I really encourage everyone today to go out, talk to people you haven't talked to or that you haven't talked to in a long time. That's what we're here for, to learn, to trade stories, and to keep working together to make this amazing industry even better. I mean, craft beer may have become big business, but one thing that will always separate you guys from the dark side of the force is that this industry is about more than ledgers and ROI. It's about more than market trends and quick returns. There's something intangible about it all. It's about heart, passion, about people driven by a collective desire to make the best handcrafted beer possible. Beer for beer's sake. Stay true to those founding principles, and I guarantee you this industry can weather any storm. Thanks for listening, folks, and have a great time today. So I think we have about 5 minutes break for the next panel, or no? No. Okay. All right. Time to change gears. So I'm just going to, before we start our presentations, I'm just going to introduce our panel here. Okay. So this is our opening keynote panel with representatives from the BC Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch and the BC Liquor Distribution Branch. Right here we have Sairose Fisher, who is the Director of Wholesale Supply for the BC Liquor Distribution Branch. Sairose joined the BCLDB as a Director of Wholesale Supply Chain in April 2015 and is responsible for the merchandise, planning, buying, allocation, and logistics for the LDB. Her experience covers supply chain, inventory management, and merchandising with a strategic and operational experience in the retail industry. She held senior merchandising positions at Roots, Sterling Shoes, and Lush Cosmetics before joining the LDB. So please welcome Sairose. There you go. Seated next to Sairose, we have Vince Cournoyer, who's a senior policy and legislative analyst at the LCRB. A provincial liquor policy analyst for the past 7 years, Vince has spent 4 years with the LDB and has been with the LCRB for almost 3 years. Today, Vince is going to be providing an overview of the LCRB, an update on what some of their actions the branch has taken to improve the level of service they deliver, and to talk about the status of the Business Technical Advisory Panel's recommendations. So please welcome Vince. Finally, we have Dmitry Batishchev, the Category Manager, Retail Services and Merchandising at the LDB. So Dmitry joined the LDB in February 2017, and while he was coming from outside the alcohol beverage industry, he does have extensive category management experience in a variety of consumer products with major brands like Kohler, Hunter Fan, and Metri. Today, he's going to be speaking to us very shortly on beer trends, results from major initiatives in 2018, major initiatives from 2019, and how they impact suppliers and agents. Please welcome Dmitry. Great. I will turn this over to him. Oh, actually, no. Sairose has the first presentation.
So good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much, Ken, and thank you very much, Carlos, for that lovely introduction. So as we all know, the industry over the last couple of years has changed profoundly. There's been a lot of growth and innovation, and it is an extremely exciting time to be part of this industry. So this morning, what I'd like to do is share some overviews of what we do at the LDB, our vision, mission, and values, our operating models, who our stakeholders are, and I'll give you an overview of our wholesale operations. Many of you are already aware of some of these. I just want to reiterate some of those issues. We'll talk a little bit about our new DC. And then lastly, I want to finish off by illustrating and sharing with you some of the sales trends for wholesale operations sales over the last 3 years. And that will be a general overview of the industry across all categories, and then we'll drill down into beer and then into micro and regional breweries. So I think it'll be some fairly interesting information, because even though we're all very aware of the trends, it's good to see some of the numbers. So who are we? Over the last 3 years, the LDB looked to update the mission, vision, and values, because the industry had changed and we needed something that was sticky and memorable for all our stakeholders as well as our internal staff, to say that, you know, we need to develop, we need to progress, and we need to be flexible and change in this current environment. So our vision is service, relationships, and results. And what we mean by that is exceeding expectations and providing respectful service, both internally and externally, to all our stakeholders, people like yourselves. To be collaborative, to work together in everybody's best interest, to form better relationships. And finally, to provide results for our government, because these are important tax dollars that go towards schools, roads, hospitals, etc., and also to perform to our operational KPIs. Our mission statement is fairly simple. We are a responsible wholesaler and retailer of liquor that contributes funds to vital BC public services. Our values, which encompass or are around the circle, are fairly straightforward: service, social responsibility, integrity, respect, people, and continuous improvement. The operating model. At the LDB, we have 3 distinct operations: retail, which is the BCLS; wholesale, which is who I'm representing today, which is the wholesale customer center and the distribution centers, and our latest one, of course, is cannabis, which is just have been working very, very hard over the last year, and as we know, the legalization was just the other day. Through our wholesale operations, the LDB provides ordering and delivery services to more than 10,000 customers. And this is really well illustrated by my next slide that shows you all the different customers that we service: the licensed retail stores, the licensees, the rural agency stores, BC liquor stores, of course, through whom we also service over 10,000 hospitality customers, the VQA and wine stores, and duty free. So this is just to give you an overview of who our customer base is in terms of our stakeholders. So in terms of actual stakeholders, we work with a multitude of different areas who all have differing needs and requirements that we are constantly dealing with on a regular basis. People such as yourselves, who are suppliers and manufacturers, associations such as the Craft Beer Guild, the hospitality customers, government in terms of CBSA, the ministry, all these people that we constantly deal with, and these are just examples of some of the people that we work with on a regular basis. What do we do at an overall level? Well, as part of wholesale operations, we have 3 main functions. We register product. Every product in BC has to be registered. So we register the vendor if you're a manufacturer here. We then register your product, and we also price it, attaching both a wholesale price and, with our partners, the BCLS, a retail price. We also plan and procure products into our DCs. So we plan and bring product into our 2 DCs. We have 3 DCs right now, but we'll be going back down to 2. And we also do the import and customs of any imported product that come into Canada. And then finally, we sell and distribute. Through our wholesale customer center, we sell to our non-BCLS customers, and then we also pick and ship through our DCs until it finally gets to our end destination, which is our retail customers and hospitality. So that is a very high overview of what our end-to-end supply chain operations look like and what we are accountable and responsible for. A very quick view of registration, and many of you are already aware of this. If you want to do business in BC, you have to apply and receive a manufacturing license, and you go to our friends at the LCRB in order to do that. Once you have done that, you come to the LDB and you work with our regulatory department in order to obtain a sales agreement. Once you do that, you get a vendor supply number, which then gives you access to our vendor portal where you can register products. These products are reviewed for a variety of different attributes in terms of alcohol percentage, social responsibility in terms of the name and the label, as well as is it actually a beer, under our definition of what is a beer as opposed to a refreshment beverage. Once that's approved, your product is approved, and it means that it can be sold in BC. We have to make sure we attach a wholesale and retail price, and then it's activated. Once it's activated, your product can be ordered by anybody in BC, or in any of the customers. We established 2 different price points. As you're aware, we have the wholesale price, which is your first cost plus the LDB markup to get us to the wholesale price. And then we have the established retail price, which is generated by our partners at BCLS. And this is what is charged to our counter customers as well as to our hospitality customers. So I'm just going through these fairly quickly because I think most people are aware of what we do. The one thing I did want to highlight here is the difference between product registration and product listing, because there tends to be a lot of confusion sometimes in the marketplace. Every product in BC has to be registered in order to be sold in BC. However, not every product is listed. Product listing is the terminology used for products that are listed and available at BCLS stores. So your product can be registered, but it is not necessarily listed, and that's a big distinction. We have over 40,000 products registered in BC, and I believe the BCLS can carry 3,000 to 4,000, so a big distinction. Now I want to take you and give you a little bit of an overview of something that's very exciting that's happening today, and that's the opening of our new distribution center out in Delta. So today, our existing Vancouver distribution center is at Broadway and Rupert, which is not too far away from here. And our new Delta distribution that we are in the process of transitioning customers to is out in Delta. It's about 26 kilometers away from our current distribution center, just south of the Fraser River. And it's terribly, terribly exciting because it does mean a lot of positive things for many of our customers. This is a bird's eye view of our new distribution center. It is 400,000 square feet compared to 220,000 square feet. And to give you an idea of the difference of what this means is this red box gives you the overview of what our current DC footprint is, and you can see it's half of what the new one is. Additional to this is that the new DC has greater capacity. The racking goes up 4 and nearly 5 levels, whereas our current one is only 3. We anticipate being able to double our capacity, which is tremendous news because it means not only can we carry a wider range of product, we can actually carry a deeper range of product, which will certainly help our in-stock for our customers. And it will also mean that we are able to onboard quite a few more SKUs. So we're really, really excited about this. So what are we looking forward to? I've already covered some of this, the fact that it's bigger, has more capacity. We also anticipate it'll be a lot more efficient to run because we won't have to be turning inventory. We turn our inventory at Vancouver Distribution Center every 7 to 10 days. And in high season, that can go down to 4 to 5 days. It's absolutely ludicrous when you've got 5 forklift trucks going to one location to try and pick product because of the volume. So absolutely wonderful, looking forward to this great efficiency. And again, the ability to carry more SKUs as well as carrying greater depth is going to help everybody in BC in our current environment. So now I'm coming to some sales information, and this is really interesting and very exciting. So I just want to reiterate, these are not provincial dollar sales. These are wholesale operation sales. And what this means is these do not include retail BCLS dollar sales. Okay? This is what wholesale sells to its customers. So please, I just want to clarify that is a differentiation for any of you that read our annual report. So over the last couple of years, you'll see that at the bottom line, our sales overall have been really good for the LDB. We've gone from 2.9 billion up to nearly 3.2 billion. Beer, as an overall category, was a little stable, 2016 and 17, remaining around about $1.08 billion. But in fiscal 2018, we saw an increase up to 1.1 billion. So good growth in that area. What is interesting to note, and you'll see this a little better in my next graph, let me just go there, because these are the numbers, but put into a bar chart, is that you'll see that where it has stayed and lost a little bit of a market share in beer, that has been picked up a little bit by wine, but quite a lot by refreshment beverage. Refreshment beverage has gone from 5.7% in the marketplace to 6.5% in the marketplace today. And that even though the dollars are small and it's off a low base, the fact that it's making inroads into market share is quite interesting. So something to acknowledge and know of what's going on in the marketplace. So in terms, and this is just an overall view of all the categories across the years. So growth everywhere. In terms of wholesale dollar sales by origin, domestic BC versus out of province and import, domestic BC still remains the biggest category. It represents about 75% of dollar sales, and that has remained fairly stable over the 3 years. So great business. Everybody loves to drink domestic beer in BC, which is great. In terms of the production by our different categories. Before I go further into this, I just want to clarify. We're going to be looking at commercial breweries, microbreweries, and regional breweries. And the definition at the LDB for this is that commercial breweries are sales greater than 350,000 hectolitres a year. Microbreweries are less than 15,000 hectolitres a year, and regional are between 15 and 350,000. So quite a wide band there, but I just wanted to ensure that when you look at this graph, you know what you're looking at. So this is the trend over the 3 years of these different brewery categories. And so you will see commercial beer has gone from 75% market share down to 67.4%. Microbreweries in that time frame have increased their market share from 9.4 to 14.6. So really good growth year on year. So even though the beer top line has stayed stable between 16 and 17, if you remember the graph a couple of slides ago, you'll see that micros continued to grow. And even last year, they were still good growth. And the same can be said for the regional breweries, but to a lesser extent. So this really does indicate that the micro business is really growing well. And the base is low, but it's still growing, whereas the overall level isn't growing at the same rate. So really a lot of good news here for this industry. And this is the top line sales again. So in terms of who are your customers, so this is just for microbreweries. So for breweries that are less than 15,000 hectolitres, who are your customers? Well, in 2000, across the year, you'll see that licensees play a very good part. And even though their market share has dropped over the 3 years, remember you're coming off a much higher base. So the overall growth is good, but the market share has dropped slightly for licensees. Here is licensed retail stores, which has grown. BCLS, which is, manufacturers on site, which actually has shown really good growth. This is obviously a great opportunity for BC brewers is to use this door to distribute their product. The BCLS, again, has shown some good growth, leveling out, but I think Dmitry will be talking to this in his presentation as well. And then rural agency stores and other smaller doors. So still really good. Over 60% of the distribution of microbrewers is between the licensees and the licensed retail stores. So some really good, strong doors there for you. And again, this is the growth. So you'll see this exponential growth there off a smaller base, but still very healthy. For regional breweries, it's licensed retail stores, the BCLS, licensees, manufacturers on sites is a much smaller door for this type of brewery, rural agency stores and others. So again, over 60% of the sales of regional breweries is between the BCLS and the licensed retail stores. So, and then what I've done here, and again, the growth here has been good, but not as good in terms of percentage increases as the micros. And the final slide is I've just mixed the micro and the regionals together, because I believe there's a bit of a blender here. And this one, I'm just going to quickly go and open all of those, and that will show you, again, the biggest customer in the marketplace are the licensed retail stores, the licenses, and BCLS. And what's really interesting about this is that it shows you that there are three very important doors equally spread in BC for breweries to distribute their products through, and they're equally strong. It's about, each of them hold about 30% of the business. So lots of opportunity to divest and get stability using different types of customer bases. And again, the sales overall over the 3 years. This slide is showing microbrewery volume sales, which I'm not going to spend too much time on because it literally shows you the same doors in the same pattern, you know, the largest being the licensees, followed by the LRS, and the same, and again, the volume of liquids going up, and here is a picture for regional breweries. So really good, really healthy, showing good divestment. You're not relying on one supply chain to get your product out, which is excellent news. And finally, as we know, the industry has grown quite tremendously over the 3 years, and there's been quite a lot of SKU proliferation. And this bar chart shows you that over 3 years, the number of SKUs has almost doubled for beer. We've gone from 4,700 SKUs in 2016 to over 9,000 in 2018, and it continues to grow. This is the domestic market, and here you'll see at the import level there has been growth, but to a much lesser extent. And there is, what I would say this talks to is the fact that there's obviously a lot of great innovation, a lot more seasonality, and a lot more competition to get that product onto shelves. So it's healthy, but it does mean there's a lot more competition, and I think, as Carlos said earlier, it's working together, collaborating to keep building it and making it stronger. And I think that brings you, oh, and this just shows you the increase year on year of the SKU count. So 2017 to 2018, a 51% increase in SKUs. So definitely a way to go. In terms of current topics, I'm coming towards the end of my presentation. What's going on? Well, as I spoke earlier, the LDB distribution center is a really big topic right now. We're in the middle of our transition to Delta. We're all looking forward to achieving stability and sustainment. It will give us a lot more ability to carry more volume. We are very capacity constrained at the moment. I know that there's a lot of interest in being held at the LDB, and we do have a wait list. So I did put that up there, and I know that Ken has already reached out to his membership to say if you are interested, then put your name forward, and this is the email address that you should be sending your request to. The other thing that we're working through right now are seasonal SKUs. We're working quite closely with the board, the guild board, to review and talk about seasonal SKUs. And by seasonal SKUs, we're talking really about a SKU that's used to represent different types of beers that are just sold in the manufacturer on-site locations. And so we're just working through this to clarify and make it a bit clearer. It's a little grey at the moment, and we anticipate this will come out in 2019 as a policy. And finally, I just want to remind you guys that we do have a Delta DC tour happening on the 28th, on Sunday the 28th. Please come and see where our new home is going to be, and I think it will really astound you and make you feel that we are moving forward in our ability to be able to service our customers much more efficiently and effectively, and the fact that you'll see how much bigger it is, that we can carry a lot more SKUs than we do today, which is what we want to do. And I believe that's the end of my presentation. Are we doing questions now or later?
I think we can save the questions
Okay.
till the end. Yeah.
Okay, so I will just load up. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Sairose. We'll do all the questions at the end, so please do save them. Now I'd like to welcome up Dmitry Batishchev, who is going to speak from his perspective in retail. Thank you.
Thanks, Carlos. Good morning, everybody. My name is Dmitry. A lot of you have probably already met me. I lead a team at BCLS on the retail side, and there's actually 3 of us. My team is not here today, but you've met them last year, and those of you who are coming to the BCLS conference next week, you'll get to meet the rest of my team who are great. Besides me, there's also Bill, my director here, who signs off on all applications, so if your listing was declined recently, that's probably his fault. So thank you. So today I'll talk to you guys a little bit about what we've seen in craft beer market, and specifically this summer. Sairose spoke a little bit on an annual basis, and it gives you a great picture of year-to-year comparison. Today I thought let's talk about what we've seen this season, right? I've spoken to you guys sometime last year, shared a little bit of numbers. Today and also next week in more detail, I'm going to talk specifically to this particular season because it was unique to BCLS. It was unique to you guys as you go through your progression as businesses. And it also highlights some of the things that we're reacting to and we're going to continue to react to as we develop as a business. So last year, what we've seen in the market specific to you guys, specifically to craft beer, is unprecedented growth. Both regional and micro last year experienced for BCLS 40% plus growth rates year over year, which is crazy. That's such a tremendous growth, and it's something that we saw that would slow down. Now, what we've seen this summer, that the growth is still there. This is still a huge number for any consumer products to grow, but you see that the number went down from 40% plus growth year over year to more of a healthy rate of 20% on the micro side. On the regional side, for BCLS, really the decline here is some of the supply challenges with just number of suppliers. If you take these suppliers out, our numbers for regional beer is plus 4% year to date versus year to date. So really, there are a couple of things that I've seen in our team experience this summer. One, it was not a great summer, right? So if you guys track your weather, we actually had better October than we had June. The summer didn't really start until the end of June, and what I've learned coming into this business is that weather is a huge factor in beer sales in the retail environment. The second, probably biggest part is RTD. So I also manage the refreshment beverages for the BCLS, and RTD had unprecedented season this year. And I don't know if we've had this type of refreshment season before, but what happened in coolers and vodka sodas market in the summer was huge. We've had a number of brands that came out of nowhere and stole a little bit of share. They stole quite a bit of share from commercial beer. They stole a little bit of share of sales from cider manufacturers, and there was some impact on what you guys do as well. So the competition was much greater this summer from the outside of beer business as it was in previous years. Supply challenges, a lot of factors here. So we've had a few things that impacted our stores and impacted you guys. The small little thing around aluminum, and that played into can supply that had an effect on our sales. We had to work with some of the suppliers that transitioned from bottles to cans. That played into supply challenges. DC is moving. That added a little bit of pressure on our stores. So it was an interesting year in terms of us managing the supply issues across our stores and making sure that we continue to grow. hyper-local and focus. What we've noticed as we go through developing our stores and making sure that our stores are keeping up with the market, what the consumers want, what we've noticed that with such a tremendous growth in number of breweries, consumers are becoming more picky, more specific. They want to try and pay attention to what's local to them. And that's sort of created a little bit of a more focus, more attention on products that are in their communities. And they pay attention to those products. They look for those products in our stores. And it was an interesting dynamic that we've seen this particular summer. And then, of course, operationally for us, as a chain, as a retail chain, as we go through our business, we've implemented a number of changes in how we do business, how we planogram our stores, how we create assortments, which added complexity to and how we do business on a day-to-day basis. So let's talk about these changes. So what happened? New to us, new to you guys, how we review our assortments, how we review our applications. So what we've announced last year is that we're going to transition to what we call a buying cycle calendar, where we ask suppliers to apply for certain products through certain times of the year. And why did we do that? When I started in this job a year and a half ago, I would come in the morning and I would have 15, 20 applications every morning for everything, for all kinds of products, imports, domestic, out of province, everything, season, out of season. If agent or supplier had 15 SKUs, he'll just submit 15 applications just to see if something sticks. And what that creates quite a bit of noise, and it did not allow us to focus our attention on a specific category and give that category the attention that it deserves. Two, it complicates the implementation of your assortments at the store level. If you can constantly making changes and bringing new products in and out, it's almost impossible to have your planograms created and rolled out in stores in time because they're constantly changing. Two, it creates quite a bit of work, right? So it's a lot of paper and inefficient processes that we have to go through every day. So what we've done here is we put together a calendar of invitations, and what we've done this year, now it's been almost a full year of going to invitations and asking all the agents and suppliers to submit for product listings within those invitation dates. So did it work? So the question that I've been asked a lot, is it working? The question is yes, but not without a pain, right? So it's such a shift in how we've done business in the past and how we're doing it right now, so that there are obviously some growing pains with making sure that everybody's getting on the board, not just our stores, but suppliers, agents, and even LDB, even Wholesale LDB, that now sees a spike in registrations before the invitations are posted. So are we going to continue with this process? The answer is yes. So this is the way we're going to go into 2019. We're going to perfect this process. We're going to stay closer to the dates. We're going to continuously look to add opportunities for you guys to submit and have windows where you can submit a variety of products. So in green here, I've highlighted a new invitation that we're going to introduce next year. And the reason we want to do that is that I'm constantly being asked about, well, Dmitry, what do you want to do with one-time buys? Would you be interested in something interesting, something quirky, something creative for your stores? And in the past, at least this year, a lot of those applications get lost in submissions amongst the year-round submissions, amongst other bigger seasonal submissions. So what we're going to do is we're going to give you a chance to submit for those creative, interesting beers that you guys brew all the time on a very small, limited basis. submit them for our review, and give us a chance to participate in those on a very limited basis throughout next year. But this is how we're going to continue into 2019. Last year at the same time, I've talked to you guys a little bit about the local beer program. And local beer program has been a big part of our world, our BCLS world, before I started, but it needed to be updated. We couldn't keep up with the current rules that we've set for the program. We couldn't keep up with the market. It was really hard to have the stores follow the rules. So what we've done this year is we've really put together a new set of rules, and we've redesigned the program to be more responsive, to allow us to manage the space within the stores appropriately between listed product and unlisted products. It allowed us to free up some space from unlisted products where I could put now more listed applications, more listed products on the shelves. And it allowed us to really manage our margins. It allowed you guys broader access to our stores, where in the past we've limited the sort of reach to a very small radius to every store. Now every store within the program has an opportunity to buy product from anywhere they want in BC if they deem that to be relevant to their local community, relevant to the consumer that shops at their stores. And really, and also, by the way, we've expanded the list of suppliers that can now participate in this program. Under the old program, if I'm not mistaken, the suppliers were capped at 5,000 hectoliters. We've expanded it to 100,000. So now pretty much everybody in this room has opportunity to participate in this program at the store level and have a shot at placing your products outside of listed process, right? So these are spec products that you would work directly with the stores on carrying them. Decided to just address this question head on, right? So this is the one question that I get asked by all of you every time we meet, so Dmitry, what do you want? Like tell us what you want and we'll do it. So let's talk about it, right? So number one is you've seen now the buying schedule is posted on the vendor site. It's constantly updated. We keep it current, so please check it and follow the dates and invitations that are posted on the calendar, on the schedule. If you submit the applications outside of those windows, chances are our team is working on something else, right? So if you're submitting application and we have refreshments invitation or we have import invitations, our attention and work is focused on addressing that particular invitation. So your listing is probably going to get missed. So stay within the dates that we post, because that's your best shot at being reviewed and being considered for listing. Focus your efforts. Given the space limitations that we have, it's hard for us to consider everything that's been submitted. And what Sairose alluded to is that the growth in SKUs has been doubling every 2 years. And it's hard for us to keep up with that. So what we ask from you guys is focus your efforts on what you think is going to have the best shot of selling in our stores. And you know your products, you know our stores, you know the consumer in our stores. So focus your efforts on those key SKUs, key products that are going to do the best in our stores. Pay attention, once you go through the listing process, which by the way is also posted on the vendor site, and vendor site has become quite a bit of a portal for us of a variety of information. Just on the vendor site, everything is on that site. How to apply for listings, how to register the product, how to taste the product in our stores, how to apply for programming, how to do price changes and apply for LTOs. So those of you guys who may not go to vendor site often, please do so. It's a great tool, great portal for all of us to work off. So as we go through approval process, a lot of you have seen approval letters, seen decline letters. We're going to give you a lot more information in those letters. If you get an approval letter, we're going to be more specific and provide you more information on what we're asking from this particular listing. Where that listing is going to go, how many stores that listing is going to go, how long it's going to be in stores, right? So we're going to be specific to what dates that listing is going to be in our stores. And the reason we want to do that, so you don't get blindsided and you can plan for it, right? So if it's a seasonal listing and I'm taking it for 6 months, that's the intent. And you should know about it. You should be able to plan for it and not being surprised by me delisting that SKU at the end of the season, because all along that was the intent for that particular product. So approval letters and decline letters got to be a lot more important in how we do business, how we communicate to you guys on a daily basis. Manage your ETAs and season-ending inventories. It is becoming crucial for us to stay, in order to stay competitive in this market with the grocery stores and LRS channel, where we need to make sure we have the product on the shelf. This summer has been particularly important, where we've seen some of the challenges that we could have probably worked with much better and gone through those supply challenges much better. So what we ask from you guys, if you have a product listed, if it is going to be arriving on a particular date, keep us informed. And make sure that our team knows when that ETA is. What are the changes to that ETA? So we can adjust to it, so we can plan for it, so you can plan for it. Same goes for the end of the season. If the product is scheduled to go away, make sure that you manage your inventory accordingly. Make sure that you know what is being shipped, where it's going, and when it needs to leave our stores in order to be a successful product. The last thing we want, that product hanging around past the season for 3 months, where then I have to clear it out at almost at cost. That has no benefit to anybody. So production dates and best before dates. This has become also an interesting dynamic this season, where we've still see products that are coming to our stores that don't have anything on them. There's no production dates, there's no batch dates, there's no best before dates. And it's a problem, right? It's a problem for us, it's a problem for you guys, it's a problem for the consumer. And inevitably as a retailer, we're, I guess, going to the point where we'll have to start requesting from you guys to provide those dates to us. It is important, and as we go through, if there is a quality problem, which never happens, we don't want to advise our stores to dump all your product because there's no date on it, right? So that is becoming very important. And very last one is support your listings. It is the competitive landscape was here last year, and it's here this year. Anywhere from just a simple sheer growth of the membership of this community to all outside competitive pressures from refreshment products, from wine, from everything. So if you have a listing in our stores, it's not the end of the game. It needs to be supported. We have a variety of programs and methods for you guys to support the listings in our stores and make them successful. And I have a book of examples of great suppliers who support their listings and really build a successful partnership. And those go from a simple WPPs, which you can do, and we pass it on, right? So for our stores and for you guys, it's a great tool, great pricing tool to utilize in promoting your products. All the way through tastings. We've changed our tasting program this summer that now allows you guys more access to to what we call theme tastings, and information is posted on the vendor site. So through programming options, through a variety of other taste magazine, a lot of avenue for you guys to promote and support your SKUs. The last thing we want is what I call is an abandoned product on our shelves, where it doesn't sell and it gets delisted. As one wise man said, we don't delist your product, consumer does, right? So if just having a great product on the shelf in the sea of 300 other SKUs is just not gonna be good enough. So thank you very much. I'll be those of you invited to BCLS symposium next week. I'm gonna talk in more detail on this. And if you guys have any questions, I know I'm not always easy to reach. I try to answer everything in a timely fashion. But if you have any questions, send me an email or give me a call, and we'll take it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dmitry, much appreciated. We're going to bring Vince up here, and just on Dmitry's last point, there's an extra added bonus with your ticket purchase today. We are going to physically keep Dmitry here for an extra couple hours in one of the lock-off side rooms, so you guys can ask him questions. But you will get an opportunity to ask these folks questions when Vince is done. So I'd like to invite up Vince to chat with us for a little bit.
Hi, good morning. As I was introduced, so I'm a policy analyst with the Liquor and Cannabis Regulation Branch. And I'll talk a little bit about what we do and kind of things that are on our radar in terms of new policy items that we're going to be addressing over the next coming months and some over the next coming years. So I'll talk about the BC liquor industry in general, kind of what our function is, our service delivery, licensing timelines, reducing delays. I'll talk about a new manufacturing unit in our branch, the business technical advisory panel. I'll talk a little bit about what's happening on that front, and I'll say a number of things on contract brewing, which I know is of great interest to a lot of people here. So the first thing I'll say is what we do. If you want to sell or make liquor in BC, you need a license, and that's what our branch does. So our branch has kind of three units basically. One is our licensing, and that's the people that you apply if you want to manufacture any type of liquor or if you want to sell liquor, so restaurants, bars, pubs, and so on. We also have a compliance and enforcement unit, so those are the people that help manufacturers or people who are licensed to sell liquor they help to comply with the law, first of all, and ensure people are complying with the law. And then we have a policy shop, which is the one that I work for, and that's a unit that we look at different requests to change laws, to change policy approaches, again in either the manufacture of liquor or the sale of it. So the liquor, the kind of stakeholders or the liquor industry as we see it, there's more than 10,000 licensed establishments. So those again are bars, pubs, restaurants across the province. There's over 1,700 retail liquor stores across the province. There's 202 U-Brew, U-Vins, and there's 608 licensed manufacturers now, 176 of which are breweries. So the last one in particular, there has been an explosion in the number of licensed manufacturers. As we all know, in the brewing industry, I think Ken mentioned, there was a handful not long ago. Now there's over 170. We also have a huge increase in the number of craft distilleries in that segment also. The small BC winery manufacturers, we all know that happened about 20 years ago. there's over 300 small BC wineries. So our branch looks after licensing all of these people who want to produce alcohol, and then working with them to stay on the right side of legislation. So I'll talk a little bit about service delivery, because service delivery has been a huge issue for our branch over the last number of years. So licensing timelines have been a problem in terms of the length of time it takes when a person, if somebody wants to open a brewery, and from the time that they actually submit an application and to the time when they get licensed to actually get up running and brewing beer legally has been a lengthy process. And there's a number of reasons for that. Not least of which is, as I mentioned, there's been a huge increase in the number of people who are applying to manufacture liquor. So our branch is dealing with a lot more applications than we have historically. And the other issue, of course, like any organization, you also have to look in terms of your own processes. So because we may have been doing something for the last 15 or 20 years, that may not work anymore in a new environment. So part of the thing that we've been doing to address this is looking at reorganizing the people who do licensing, so our licensing division. And one of the things, as I say, it's looking at new processes, but you also, from time to time, just need some more horsepower. There's too much to do for the number of people that used to be able to do it. So the branch we've been hiring people, and there's an immediate result in having more people actually doing the work. And the other thing is looking at adjusting the way that we do things. So one of the things we get, like hundreds of calls in the course of a week from people who are wanting to know how this all works. So I want to apply, I'm looking at this, I don't understand this, I don't know what all of the steps are that I need to engage in. So we used to have people who used to do that kind of part-time. So they'd have their day job, and once a week, these three people would say, okay, it's your turn on this desk. And when they were on the helpline, their work wouldn't get done. So now what's happened, there's a new support team. These people do that, that's all they do. So they pick up the phone. So first of all, you'll get a more timely response. And also, there's not people's work not being done while they do that. So that's actually, that small matter has made an enormous difference. The other thing with service delivery timeframes is there's a lot of fingers in this pie when you're trying to get a license to produce alcohol in BC, and it's not just in BC, it's in Canada. There's a lot of fingers in this pie. So what you've got is you've got the provincial government, there's elements that you have to go through with the federal government, and then there's your local government. And a lot of these processes used to take place, so one would do one thing, and once that was done, then it would be sent over to the next level of government, and then they would start doing it. Well, of course, you can imagine how the timeline, when you operate like that, gets lengthy. So what's happened is, over the last couple of years, well, the last year, I guess, there's been an effort to do some more concurrent stuff. So when something comes into the province, we don't have to finish everything before you send it over to the local government, because they have their process. So what's ended up happening now is local government and the province have been doing things at the same time. So that can shave off months of waiting for the process to come to a close. The other element to this with local government is there used to be a requirement that in order to get fully licensed to manufacture liquor or for on-site consumption, like for bars and pubs, we would require local governments to do a council resolution, and which was all contingent upon when council meets, and that could be weeks or months from this date till the next time that they meet. And you're not going to get a resolution until the local government council meets. So what we've tried to do is say, look, in some of these instances, we don't need a resolution, a formal resolution. You can have a staff member who city council designates just sign off on this stuff. So you don't have to wait for the next council meeting to take place. Again, that can shave off weeks and months in a process, and it didn't add any value. Now, there are still some councils, some local governments, who want city council to actually sign off on things, and there's some instances when we still require it. But where it's not necessary, that's been dispensed with, and again, it takes weeks and months off of the process. So, current timelines. Now, we're looking at, if you're looking to apply for a brewery license, you're now looking from anywhere from about 6 to 9 months. And from what I understand a number of years ago, this, you would be looking at 9 to 12, 14 months kind of time frames. So the 6 to 9 months, when I say that's if everything goes and flows as it ought to. So that's if we're doing what we need to do well, and the person applying is doing what they need to do. Another one that manufacturers, another big issue, is structural change. So if you want to change anything in your manufacturing facility, or again, for bars or pubs or whatever, change your licensed premise, you need to let us know. And the reason for that is that your license is given for the premise that you said you're going to be occupying in the way that it's laid out at the time. So if you want to change that, then you need to apply for that. Again, we're now looking at about 4 to 6 months, I'm told. It used to be 6 to 9 at least, and sometimes it would go beyond that. So in the last month, the backlog, there used to be these licensing staff people had stacks of structural change applications. And again, one has to remember, there's not somebody sitting there doing brewery structural changes. This is for all industry. So it's all manufacturers, it's all restaurants, pubs. There's over, there's over about 11,000, 12,000 active establishments. So with reorienting the way that we do things, the backlog has been reduced by 60%. So that's an enormous gain in terms of what our workload is and the amount that people are dealing with the backlog. But it also allows manufacturers or licensees to get on with the business that they want to do. So I want to move this area over here. I want to put a wall here. It's going to change the flow of my manufacturing site. It allows you to get busy doing that a lot sooner. So I went down the other day to our licensing people and I said, look, so we get a lot of complaints about the amount of time it takes to get things through the process. And what's one of the elements, and we all realize that, there's things that the branch does that could be done better. And we've actually, as I mentioned, we've been really focused on that probably in the last year, I would say. And then so the other element was, I said, so what's the hang up in terms of somebody who's applying, either for a brewery license or for this structural change? And one of the things, without fail, it's incomplete applications. So they get an enormous number of applications that are not complete. So there's one item missing, or it's unclear, or they were supposed to submit this and they didn't. And so by the time your application ends up getting looked at, if there's a hiccup here because it's incomplete, I didn't submit this form or a picture of this or a floor plan or something, well, what happens then, everything gets stalled out. And now the licensing person's got to try to get a hold of you or your representative or somebody in order to get what it is that they need. And then it takes a person time to develop that or to gather it or whatever, and then resubmit it. Well, now you could be weeks behind the 8 ball. So what they stressed for me to say was, make sure if you're applying for something, and there's a whole myriad of forms, as you know. If you deal with licensing and with government and regulation, there's a lot of forms. And I mean, they can be a pain in the ass, for sure. but you have to do them. And if you don't fill them out properly, it stalls everything. It stalls everything out. So there's a couple of approaches you could do. Is either make sure that somebody is paying a good deal of attention to these forms that need to be filled out. And this is particularly an issue if you're trying to launch a brewery. There's 1,000 things to do, and filling out government forms is probably not something that a person had in mind when they were talking about starting a brewery. The problem is it's a critical piece of it. So some people hire consultants, and they're great. They also are expensive. If you don't want to hire a consultant and spend the dough to have a consultant, then you really need to carve out some time to make sure that you are filling out what needs to be filled out in the manner in which when it hits the desk of a licensing person, that it's there and that it's understood and it's all good. And then they can get busy. The other element, and I mentioned that help desk, consultants are great, but they really, I guess at the end of the day, are not terribly necessary in that you can pick up the phone and there's somebody, you'll get a human being who you can ask questions of, and you'll get a timely answer now. Either they'll answer it right when they ask it, or they'll move it to the person who knows the answer to your question, and you'll get a response in relatively short order. Okay, the next thing I'll talk about is licensee education sessions. So one of the elements of our compliance and enforcement unit, they really are not there to go out and be the police who want to shut people down and find, really put the thumb down on manufacturers or on restaurants, bars, and so on. And although it may be hard for some people to believe, their actual function there is to help people succeed and make sure that you stay on the right side of the law. So one of the things, there are a myriad of different requirements that you have to meet. And at the end of the day, whether a person agrees with all of them, many of them, some of them, it ultimately doesn't matter at that moment. Yet what you have to do is you have to comply with what is. If you want to help make changes, then you can do that. But at the end of the day, if you want to stay in business, you need to comply with what things are now. So one of the elements that the branch really is trying to focus on is to help manufacturers understand what their obligations are. So where are the parameters in which they can operate? And what this includes is is a number of things. Firstly, is how you go about making your product at your manufacturing facility. And then now, over the years, government has opened up a lot of different opportunities for manufacturers in terms of on-site stores, in terms of tasting rooms, in terms of lounges now, tours, and so on. But all of those things, as soon as government allows something, you will be sure what happens is it necessitates developing some parameters or some regulations. So when you allow something, as I say, you're going to end up with a regulatory framework around that. So the branch initially started out with food primaries and liquor primary educational sessions. So there's a person now at the branch, and now there's two actually, who goes around the province and offers free of charge to licensees to attend. And it's a Q&A and a presentation about what are the fundamentals about what you need to do to operate your business in a legal manner. So these things have been wildly successful, so we're told. They've been extremely well attended, and people have found them really useful. So the next thing what the branch is doing now, these two people are in the process of developing educational workshops for manufacturers. And they'll do the same thing. They'll do a roadshow around the province. And again, it will be to hit on the kind of the primary things you need to know to stay within the law in order to conduct your business. Now, these things are getting developed. I was asked also to say, look, if you're interested to assist us in developing the content for this workshop, then contact the branch. And people are really interested in hearing from people who are in the brewing sector. They'll also be doing this in the distilling and the winery sectors, about what it is that you guys need to know, what would be useful to attend some of these workshops. So here's an opportunity to have some input into what ends up as the final product. Okay, the other thing that we've done, and I think it's probably about a year now, is the branch developed a manufacturing unit in the compliance and enforcement branch or division. So this is inspectors. They used to have kind of general inspectors. So inspectors would inspect food primaries, which are restaurants, liquor primaries, which are bars, pubs, and manufacturing establishments. And they would do it all. The problem that the branch heard about was that often inspectors knew quite a bit about liquor primaries going into restaurants, bars, and so on, because there's 10,000 of them. So they do like hundreds of those in a year. A lot of the inspectors didn't really understand the manufacturing sector, so they didn't know. So you walk in and you want to do an inspection of a brewery. Well, if you don't know what a brewery ought to look like or what's involved in brewing beer at your licensed establishment, it's very difficult to have a meaningful inspection or a meaningful conversation with a brewer. So the branch implemented this manufacturing unit, and that's all they do now. So these inspectors focus strictly on manufacturing facilities. So again, breweries, wineries, and distilleries. So as we move along, you'll find that they're much more knowledgeable now than they would have been a year ago, and they'll become more knowledgeable a year from now than they are now. So this better enables you to have a conversation with inspectors. They know what they're looking at, they know what they're looking for, and they can have a conversation, if need be, about some things that may need changing, some tweaks that you may need to implement on your licensed premise, again, to make sure that you're complying with your legal obligations. Okay. The next thing I'll talk about is the Business Technical Advisory Panel. Some of you, I would imagine, know lots about this. Some of you may have never heard of it. So I'll just say the government said to industry, and by industry I mean the liquor industry in general. So this is the hospitality sector. So again, restaurants, bars, pubs, and so on. And the manufacturing sector. And they said, look, what we're going to do is we're going to establish a panel, and this is the one where somebody may know Mark Hicken, who's a well-known lawyer in the wine sector. And they appointed him as the chairperson. And they collected representatives from each of the sectors in the liquor industry, and said, look, we want you guys to sit down around a table, discuss what your key issues that you have with dealing with government in terms of the manufacture and sale of liquor, and come up with recommendations for what you see as the primary problems. And it was told to be done by consensus, so you all have to agree that these are the primary things, and come back with a report and provide some recommendations for how you see to potentially fix these problems. And Ken sat on this. He was one of the members, and there was 12 of you? 8 of you. So there was 8 people. So government is now, or sorry, that panel submitted their report, I believe, back in April, tabled it, gave it to government. So now our job, and this is what I do for a living, so now we get this 24 recommendations from industry, government looks at it, and they basically then tell us what their priorities are. So here's 24 things. This is what we want you as government, meaning you, meaning the branch, to focus your attention on. So that's where we're at the moment. So there's 24 of these. The first focus of business, I guess, is government says take these 24 recommendations, and now we have to consult with the health sector, so health advocates, and labor unions, so the labor sector, and we'll also be viewing these things within the context of trade obligations. So that's where we're at. We're going to start doing some sit down with the different sectors. There's one in particular. I thought I had this on this slide. Oh no, it's down further. Okay, so the way that this and incidentally, you can, for those of you who don't know anything about this report or who haven't read it, you can find it on our website at the Liquor Control and Licensing Branch website, and it's on the left-hand side. There's on a thumbnail on the left-hand side. It's a good read. What they did is they identified the issue, they gave an explanation about why it's an issue, and then it followed with some recommendations. So the process now, as I say, government provides direction on which of those to work on first. So we are now getting that direction from government. Our branch, as well as the liquor distribution branch, because many of the recommendations are related to the LDB, we provide government with a full understanding of what the issue is. We provide some options. So here's how we can address this. Taking into account the recommendation that the panel made. And then we'll often provide a recommendation for government. At the end of the day, the minister and in instances his cabinet sits down and they ultimately decide, of course. They read our input. Here's the issue. Here's the options. Here's which way you can go. And then they make a decision. The government then comes back to our shop and says, okay, we choose this one, and then our job then is to implement it. So what does this look like? Okay, so contract brewing, which is everybody's topic of importance. So the Guild, so Ken and others, there's the big beer. There are a host of individual breweries, whole gamut of people I've had conversations with around contract brewing. And there are different perspectives on the issue. As there are on most of these issues, there is very seldom, I've been in the liquor world now in the regulatory side of this for about 7 years, and I have yet to see an issue that somebody says, well, this is like a dead no-brainer, where everybody agrees, ever. There's multiple interests involved for a whole host of reasons, depending on what sector, what part of the sector you're in, and so on. So the panel's recommendation that'll be of most, well, it's not the most interest, but it has to do with contract brewing. Recommendation 18, if you go read the report, is specifically, well, it's related to contract brewing in a number of ways. And what that report recommendation is that they're suggesting that government implement a minimum annual production level to own or to have a brewery license. So if you want a brewery license, you need to produce beer. Again, sounds like kind of a no-brainer. At the moment, there is no requirement for an annual minimum level of production to retain a brewery license. And there, in fact, is not one for a distillery license. There is, and has been for years, a minimum annual production if you want a winery license. So if you want to renew your winery license, you have to show our branch that you produced 4,500 liters. That's what it is in wine. So that was one of the recommendations. The other, or that was part of that recommendation. This one has a number of different elements going on in it. The other one was talking about, and I'll paraphrase basically what the issue is. It's about what constitutes beer that the brewery owns. And this has to do, again, with contract brewing. So, and this has an impact in a number of ways, not least of which is for those of you who operate a lounge, any manufacturer that has a lounge license, you must serve 80% of your sales in your lounge must be liquor that you produce, that is yours. So the question becomes, what constitutes what is yours? And again, that sounds simple enough. It's not. It's not a simple matter. It's a complicated thing. So, contract brewing, Ken and I have had multiple conversations over it's been years now, correct? 2 years? Yeah. Right, 2.5 years. What we're doing now is recommendation 18, when its number comes up, will be fully explored. Again, government, my job is to provide government with a full understanding of what the issues is, what's the impacts, and so on. The critical thing is no unexpected consequences. Government hates, as they should, unexpected consequences. And my job is to try to identify, if you do this, here's the 6 dominoes that fall. And then they decide, how many dominoes do you want to fall in order to do this? And the last thing I'll say about contract brewing, which I think many of you who are in the industry, if you're not, you wouldn't know this necessarily. The LDB just sent out last week, I guess, a consultation paper, and they're asking for feedback on the manner in which the LDB calculates a brewery's worldwide annual production level. And the reason why that matters is your worldwide annual production level equates onto how much markup, LDB markup, is applied to your beer. So it's a tiered system, and so the more beer you make, the more markup is applied to your product. So the way that that's calculated matters to breweries. So there's a consultation paper that's went out, as I'm sure the Guild has done, is encouraging people to make sure you respond, either through the Guild or individually. And I'm done.
Perfect, thank you, Vince. So as some of you may have noticed the time, this panel is technically over. The trade show has opened up. However, we have until 11 for our next set of panels. So if you want to stay in here and ask questions, we are going to do that. Before we start that, I just want to let you know about what's going on at 11. So yeah, so the trade show is open. If you feel like going out and checking out and seeing the sponsors, meeting folks there, please do. At 11, we have in room A, Let's Go Hazy, the do's and don'ts of hazy beer. In room B, we have craft brewing. Oh, am I screwing that up? Okay. Craft brewing and social media panel. And then as well, for those of you who don't know, there's a new feature this year, which is there's stuff upstairs. And so there's going to be a financial solutions for young and startup breweries discussion with RBC. So if you are looking at starting up a brewery, you're small and you want to grow, that would be a great panel to go to. So I had a bunch of questions to ask these folks. Because of the time constraints, I will only ask them if the floor goes quiet and I see some tumbleweed, but I have a feeling that's not going to happen. So I am just going to, is that okay? Yeah. So I'm just going to open this up, and I just wanted to, as we have in the past, lay a couple of ground rules here. As you know, these folks took a lot of time out of their busy schedule to come see us. And so we're hoping that if you have a question that is very, very specific to your business and to interactions you've had with one of the regulatory bodies these folks represent, that you don't ask it here, but if you think you have a question that is generic and general that will impact everybody and everybody be interested in, please do speak. We have them here. It'd be great to hear from you. So can I, anybody like to ask a question? Okay. And so you're going to have to yell, and then we are going to have to, I will repeat the question.
Wednesday, right? I made my first legal cannabis purchase, and I realized that legal cannabis is just 7%, while in here is 10%.
Okay.
So my question is, why the difference? And is there something that could be done to bring beer down to the same level as cannabis?
Okay, so the question was, on Wednesday, he made his first legal cannabis purchase, and let's applaud that, good stuff, supporting government revenues and all. And the PST paid was 7%, but the PST on beer is 10%. Why is there a discrepancy? Yeah, the mic is on.
Hi. I'll take that one. And my answer is going to be a brief one, in that provincial sales tax policy is the Ministry of Finance. So that's where that decision is made. I mean, I can't answer the question. Sorry, but your question can be asked from the Ministry of Finance.
Okay, right here.
Any plans for cold storage at the new DC?
Sorry, repeat that?
Any plans for cold storage at the new DC?
Okay, the question was, any plans for cold storage at the new DC?
No, there is no plans for cold storage. That would still have to be via an alternative supplier. But we know that even with the space we do have, we know that that will be taken up fairly quickly and it will fill up.
Okay, just a comment to the folks in the back of the room. If you could please try and shuffle out of here. I know there's coffee and water and all that good stuff. I don't think we're going to be that much longer, so I think some people in the audience are having a hard time hearing the answers and hearing the questions. So next question from the audience. Yeah.
Are there any plans to increase transparency on the markup?
Okay. Are there any plans to increase transparency on the markup?
So I'm not quite sure. I totally understand that because the calculation is fairly transparent. So you know exactly how it's calculated on the site. So can you perhaps?
I think he's talking about retail.
Oh, sorry, that's not me.
So it is. So the way I guess I would approach that question is you have to look at BCLS business as a retail business, right? So we have our margin targets and things that we're asked to by a senior team to achieve. Just like you guys have your margins that require you guys to stay in business and operate properly, we have our own that allow us to be competitive and to pay our bills. Now, in every single meeting that I have with you guys, we talk about it. We talk about what my requirements, what I'm asking from, what I want my products to be on the shelf. If the question is, will we ever publish that? I don't envision that at the moment, but in our individual conversations, I never shy away from telling you guys where I see my margin requirements are for some of the beer products. Their requirements are different from category to category. So we have certain requirements for the commercial beer. We have certain requirements for micro, for original, and they also differ based on the format, right? So we price our, for example, single SKUs, single can SKUs differently than we would price a 12-pack. And the reason we do that is that because there's an amount of labor that's involved in merchandising and maintaining a single SKU on the shelf versus a 12-pack. So the short answer is I don't envision us publishing all the margin requirements to the industry, but in the one-on-one conversations when we talk about listing products, it's a fair game. It's a fair game, and I welcome that question in the individual meetings.
Okay, great. Josh?
Question in regards to structural change applications. Are you looking at any different processes, like you said, for pre-screening applications to like remove incomplete applications so they're not clogging up the pipeline, so it's not like waiting, and then it gets reviewed, and it's meanwhile that might be holding back a number of other applications that are fully complete. And then maybe the second part, for structural change applications that are more about sort of the paperwork, the city's approved, the higher occupancy, but you're actually not making physical structural changes. So it's a little bit different than, I'm building a new building over here and expanding. Is there any provisions that can help speed that process up by just funneling them through a fast track or?
Okay, did everybody get the question? Yeah, no. So the question, there was a two-part question. First related to any pre-screening initiatives or anything to speed up the process that can be done with structural changes. The second is there any kind of process to filter out perhaps structural change applications that don't relate to actual physical structural changes? Is that adequate? Okay, great.
So the first part of your question I can answer. The second one, you give me your number and I'll call you. Because I don't know the answer. So on the first note, the gains as I understand it, and like I said, I just had this conversation yesterday. They actually have, the reason why there's a 60% reduction in the backlog was simply bodies, individuals working on it. So there was a recognition that at a certain moment, like you just simply need more people doing the work. And so that's what's happened. There's been another person, I think there's two or three more people doing them. And the person who's supervising this has been doing them for years. So the whole process has been churning a lot faster. So I don't know, I think it's, as I understand it, so they say, you submit to me as a structural change application and it's incomplete, that just goes over here. So it's not grinding to a halt anybody else's, as I understand it. It's that some contact will be made, and that while we wait for you to fix this, like we're cranking out on the rest. Your other one, like I said, I don't know, but if you're interested, I mean, by all means, just come up, give me your, and I'll call you Monday or Tuesday, and I'll ask the question. Yeah?
There you go. Craft Brewers Conference, getting results for BC Brewers. That's what you're seeing right there. Anybody else have a question? Oh, there we go. Okay.
Regarding the new DC and whether the 10-cent per liter flat rate is going to be reviewed at all with the cost of the facility and all that.
There's a fantastic question from Matt that I was going to ask. The new DC is going to come online. Is the 10-cent flat rate going to be re-examined?
Okay, so yeah, we are aware from various stakeholders that the 10 cents beer distribution charge is anomalous in the marketplace today. And so once we have reached stability and sustainment with our new DC in the new year, we are committing to review that charge and make recommendations to our executive. But nothing will happen until next year in terms of review.
Okay, any other questions?
So, Dmitry, you mentioned supporting our listings, and I strongly feel a great way to support those listings is to allow the liquor store staff to know what our product is. Is there an inkling of a program to allow us to get them to try what they're selling?
So the question was allowing folks in the retail sector to taste the products, come in and do tastings. So is there a plan to initiate that kind of process?
So we have a program similar to there's a pilot right now where we would potentially allow suppliers, agents, taste the product with the store staff. So it is, and what I'm stressing out is it's a pilot. It's the program right now is under development. And other jurisdictions have done this before and is successful. And there's 100% recognition that it's important for our staff to understand what the products are. So yes, so I know there's a couple of stores that are piloting and reviewing it, and because there's a set of rules that need to be set in place in order for that to be successful and fair for everybody. There'll be more to come to this. So we're working on it, so there'll be more to come.
Okay, great. So that concludes this session. I want to thank Dmitry and Vince and Sairose so much for taking time to come see us today. Can we please have a round of applause for our panel today? And so on behalf of the organizers, we have a little thank you gift for everyone. In lieu of a gift, we have made a donation to the BC Hospitality Fund in your names. I was going to make a Seinfeld joke that the donation was made to the Human Fund, but I don't know if everybody's going to get that. So, to the Human Fund. So here we go.